Conspiracy theories, eh? Wait till you get a load of this. Hello, and welcome to Cracked Sisters Conspiracies. We are a podcast that talks about conspiracy theories, mysteries, and all over spooky shit. My name is Cassandra.
And I'm Jackie.
And we are said sisters. Hello. I just saw you an hour ago.
I know. Hello.
We were getting pumped and rips and reps at the gym. Sorry, that's a letter.
We did a very
letter Kenny reference. It was so weird.
Workout today.
We showed up.
Mm-hmm.
We
did something.
My upper body hurts. My shoulders and my chest hurt. But tomorrow's leg day. We're going to do it independently of one another. But I love leg day.
I fucking hate leg day.
My goal is to be able to kill a man with my thighs.
I think that'd be cool, but
I just want to
I don't want to work.
If I am in a dire situation and all I have is my legs to protect me.
But we've talked about this. In what situation are you in such a dire...
I don't know. What if I get kidnapped?
Predicament that a man's head is between your legs?
No, I'm like, okay, I envision being kidnapped. My hands are tied behind my back. I'm on the floor and they're coming at me for whatever reason. They trip and fall. And I'm just I don't know. I take advantage. I seize the moment and I get them in a leg lock and just squeeze their head like a watermelon, explode it, and then find a way. I can take my arms out from behind my back, find a way to escape the situation.
Do you know how many pounds of pressure it takes to crack a human skull, let alone make it explode like a watermelon?
No, do you know?
No, but it's a lot more than you'll ever
because that just sounds like goals to me. But anywho, that is not what we're here to talk about today.
No. What are we talking about today?
We are talking about how Matt Groening is a time traveler.
And who is Matt Groening?
Groening. The name is not pronounced the way that it's spelled, and I don't know how to pronounce it. Anywho, he is the creator of The Simpsons.
The Simpsons.
And more importantly, in my opinion, Futurama.
I never really liked that show.
Oh my God. That is probably one of my most favorite shows.
I know it. I don't get it.
It is Evan's favorite show. We fall asleep with that on the TV almost every night. I have seen consciously or unconsciously every episode multiple times over, and I love it so much. It has a deep seated place in my heart.
Loser.
Fuck off. You are just uncultured swine. But anywho, we are talking about how the creators of both of these good shows, one a little bit better than the other, may possibly be a time traveler.
Okay.
Have you heard anything about this at all?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Do you watch The Simpsons at all?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
I kind of missed it in life.
And it's when we were kids, we weren't really allowed to watch it. I know for me, for sure, that was a hard no. Bart was too crude and it was just a little too adult and inappropriate. So mom and dad were like,
well, if you couldn't watch it, I surely couldn't watch it.
I mean, I feel like you kind of skirted by and got away with a little bit more than I did, being the younger sibling, many, many years later, but whatever.
Yeah, no, I never watched it.
Okay. So I wasn't allowed to watch it, but I wanted to watch it. And so my to be able to watch it, the way I circumvented the parents, I used it many, many times. Our aunt and uncle's house. I would hang out there with our older cousin, and he would sneak me all the shows,
there you go,
and the movies and the music that I wasn't supposed to be exposed to. So I have Kurt to thank for all of that.
There you go.
But yeah, so I watched it pretty regularly, either in secret or as an adult when I lived on my own. But we would do the full Sunday night lineup. We would watch The Simpsons, Family Guy. We were into animation domination, which I don't really think was your speed, especially based on the looks I'm getting from you right now.
The only animation I watched was kid shows like SpongeBob, Courage, Rocket Power. That was it. But once I got a little bit older, I had zero interest in any animated TV show.
Yeah, so this is 100% Evan's fault. I had exposure to cartoons and stuff growing up, he really turned me on to let's just watch adult cartoons all the time. So we lived on Cartoon Network, and we still do to this day.
Alex will only watch children's shows to this day. SpongeBob, Courage, all the ones I named earlier.
You know what? They are our happy place.
They are,
and
but
so
he's still scared of it.
that shit can get pretty
It's
crazy.
terrifying. The fact that that's aimed for little children is shocking.
Right? But so The Simpsons in particular, it's been around almost as long as I've been alive.
Yeah, like 93?
No, even before that. It was
really?
1989, I think,
Oh my
is
gosh,
when it
I didn't know that.
premiered. Yeah, so I was a wee little lattice. That's not the word for that. A little lady.
I was a twinkle in Dad's eye.
Right? But so yeah, it's had a 30 plus year run.
Is it still on?
I don't know. You know, I thought about looking it up and I didn't look it up. I haven't watched.
It's literally the basis of your episode.
I haven't actively watched it in years, but let's see. I know as of like a year or two ago, it was still on because Gracie likes it. It's probably not the best parenting choice on my part, but so the most recent season was season 34.
Jesus, it's like Grey's Anatomy.
That premiered on my birthday, September 25th of 2022. So, Jesus. So it's had a long run, but over those years, there have been a crazy amount of times that it's predicted either future technology or future events that happen in the real world. And so the fact that it's happened in such an alarming rate over time may lead one to believe that maybe he's just a time traveler. Because how can you just kind of like spitball and come up with a whole bunch of stuff that actually ends up happening this many times?
Based on my research, he has at least predicted 18 accurate predictions, and he has like a 90% success accuracy rate.
And so like, I don't understand the creative writing process that goes into making TV and movies.
I could never.
I cannot comprehend it. I'm just not wired that way. I don't know how people come up with the ideas that they do. It's probably drugs, but
or future.
Or they are time travelers and they have future insider information. But yeah, it's just like a bunch of dudes, or sometimes ladies. It's 2023, sitting in a room.
Or lady dudes, because it's
lady
dudes.
But yeah, it's just a bunch of people like spitballing ideas, and you do this day in, day out over the course of 30 some odd years. I'm sure ridiculous. Your thoughts go to weird ass places. So it's not completely out of this world to think that, yeah, just the imagination has come up with a lot of these things. But I'm like,
but the fact that he's known for specific,
the frequency and the specificity of some of those predictions, it makes you go, So we're going to go through some of the examples. So yeah, you said there were quite a few. There's a lot. Some of them are like, okay, that like kind of happened, but there were some major guesses that came about too. So we're just going to touch upon a couple of things here. So like I mentioned, it's not just events that take place, but sometimes like technological things. So like a couple examples of that are like FaceTime and smartwatches. So in an episode back in the early or mid 90s, 1995, it's the Lisa's wedding episode.
Okay.
So in their episode, it's a futuristic reality. So they're looking forward, I think, into like the 2000s.
Yeah, because Lisa was a child.
Right.
So she's getting married.
Yeah. So she's like 23 at this point in the episode. And there is a scene where she is essentially having a video chat with Marge, but she's sitting at a monitor and it has like a rotary phone base. So it's alluding that it's like a phone call over video. And it's like, we didn't have cell phones and shit back then. We didn't have cameras. We didn't have anything other than the landline, essentially.
We have cameras, but not.
Well, not like phone that you send over wireless or whatever. So to see something like that in the mid 90s where we had no concept of what technology was going to be like, that was kind of absurd. And then fast forward 15 years to 2010, which is I think where this episode ends up taking place anyway.
Yes.
Apple premieres their new concept called FaceTime, where you can have video calls through your cell phone with people all around the world. And like that iPhone, I think only came out in 2008. So we
did have Skype though.
Did we have Skype back then?
Yes.
But that was like through the computer, not through like a phone.
No.
So yeah, Simpsons, it was more
calling was at least invented, but not on a cell phone.
Yeah, so to have it on the mobile device and all of that. So, but it was a little far-fetched. Talking through your phone with a video, that's crazy. But in that same episode, another concept that is a normal part of day-to-day life is smartwatches. So again, same episode back in mid-90s, Lisa's soon-to-be husband, her fiance or whatever, he is on his phone sending a proposal, like, and just talking on his watch.
There you go.
That's the word. And sending a proposal over the watch like he's talking through a phone. And again, super weird. That's not something that would be normalified in any way. Yeah. And 2014, again, Apple releases their newest technological advancement, the Apple iWatch.
So either he's a time traveler or he has stock in Apple.
Right? That, or yeah, maybe he's a time traveler and Steve Jobs just is stealing his. I don't know, but I feel
conspiracy theory within the conspiracy.
Right,
theory.
like Steve Jobs is not the revolutionary thinker that we think he is. Apple is built on The Simpsons. Apparently.
There you go.
So fast forward, another even more notable prediction would be the election of one Mr. Donald Trump as our president of the United States of America. I'm bouncing around all over town.
No, I have a list, so I'm just seeing if you hit the ones I have on my list.
Got it. Okay.
But I technically don't have that one.
Yeah, so there was an episode back in 2000, so 23 years ago. Again, it was another like flash forward into the future episode. And in this particular one, Lisa is the sitting president of the United States of America. But she had made a comment about the budget crunch that had been left over that she inherited from President Trump. Which at that time, I think he was more of a media celebrity and business mogul. 2000.
Was Apprentice on in 2000? Because that's really the only thing I knew him from.
The reality show portion of things.
Fired.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably around that same time. So that was likely why it was woven in, like as a
funny,
the joke for the time. But as we are all aware, 16 years after that episode aired, we had President Donald Trump in office. It's an interesting time. It was
2004, the first season of Apprentice came out.
Okay,
so this is even before that.
This was before then, so he was more of
so then that's so random,
a business tycoon. Yeah. So where did that come from? Interesting. Keeping with the political theme, in 2008, so almost a decade later, it showed Homer using a voting machine in the Obama-McCain election. And the machine was faulty and it ended up changing his vote. Like he would pick one candidate and it was like, fuck off, you can take this one instead. And an entire election cycle later. So what, 4 years? Is that what the election cycles are? I should know this. We have one next year. Just kidding. I am aware. There was a voting machine in Pennsylvania that essentially went rogue and was doing what happened on The Simpsons. It was changing people's votes from Obama to Mitt Romney. So why did I say McCain?
Because in the episode, it's Obama versus McCain. In real life, it was Obama versus Romney.
I was reading my notes and trying to comprehend things.
I hate when that fucking happens.
I know. my thoughts bisected and I was lost for a second. Okay, so kind of moving away from the political shtick for a bit. One of the it's funny and sad at the same time. But it's probably one of my more favorite predictions. It has to do with Siegfried
I knew
and
you
Roy.
were going to fucking say that. You're such an asshole.
I mean, what happened is awful. I mean, I would feel so betrayed if
Didn't he like eat his head or something?
No, it wasn't that extreme. I mean, I
never watched.
He got attacked by a fucking tiger. Like, so in the early 90s, before you were even born, 1993.
This 1 year before I was born. Don't be dramatic. Continue.
Yeah, whatever. If you want to get down to the nitty gritty. So Mr. Burns in this episode is building Vegas as casino, hotel, whatever in Springfield. And it very clearly mimics Las Vegas, like down to the acts at the casinos, like MGM, that's where the Lions are. That's where Siegfried and Roy were. And in this episode, there is an It's made up of two men who are clearly meant to resemble Siegfried and Roy that has a tiger. And unfortunately for them, they got attacked by their big old kitty. And the exact same thing happened a full 10 years later in real life in Las Vegas. And yeah, I would be, like I said, so betrayed if an animal that I love so much turned on me.
Well, bro, it's a wild animal.
That is the other component to it. Like I only have domesticated animals, so that would never be my situation. But I would feel bad. My dog is a piece of shit.
Like there was a guy, I don't know his name, but he was this bear advocate and just talked about how much he loved bears and how bears are the best. And then he literally got mauled to death by a fucking bear. And they're like, well, at least he died doing what he loved. But it's like, yeah, you can have bonds with animals, but they're at the end of the day, they're wild fucking animals.
And also, let's be real. Almost none of us are going to have the bond that we want to have.
No.
Like, we all want to be that one person, that special person that like, oh, this wild, crazy animal that will attack anyone else is really going to love me because truly deep down, I'm a pure person or what? No.
Yeah.
No. So
it's just bound to happen.
Right. And maybe a little bit you deserve it. If you're putting yourself into those situations, you're a little delusional.
And I'm sure people were pretty pissed. You got like PETA people and shit that were pissed that you're having tigers in a show and all that stuff.
They don't do that in Vegas anymore, do they? No. Because didn't they have a whole like lion exhibit at MGM where you can go see?
That was way before I was born, so
I mean, never since I've been to Vegas.
But I know they don't have that now. There's no way that would fly nowadays.
No, I feel like even animatronic ones would be a problem. Like, another one that the Simpsons kind of predicted that ended up being a real thing that had kind of worldly repercussions was the whole NSA spying scandal.
Yep.
So back in 2007, that is when The Simpsons released their movie. I love The Simpsons movie. Spider Pig, Spider Pig.
The CD or DVD was a donut.
It's a donut.
Never seen it, but I know what it looks like.
Yeah, watched it many, many times. It's a common thing in our household to yell "Eepa!" And if you've seen the movie, you know what that means. But like, that's just a random thing that we say all the time. And
what does it mean?
It's talking about the EPA.
Wow.
You know, the Environmental Protection Agency. It's one of those, you have to see it to understand it. It's like an offhand thing from comic book guy.
That's the fat guy.
That's the fat guy.
See, I know some of the characters.
You know some, but anywho, I'm digressing a lot today. So in the movie, there's a moment where Marge and Lisa are like on a bus and Marge is just running her mouth about shit and she won't shut the fuck up. And Lisa's like, you need to lower your voice. We shouldn't talk about stuff like that, you know, especially with listening to everything that we say and taking into consideration our current situation. We all have a little FBI agent living in our phones.
100%.
Yeah.
Which is so helpful because if I saw a video or an ad and I forgot to save it, all I do is say it out loud in the vicinity of my phone. And I know in about 6 to 7 minutes, I will see that video or that ad pop up. So he comes in clutch sometimes.
He does. You know, I was a little disappointed in his performance, though, because I was recently listening to a future episode of ours that's going to be posted soon. And there is mention, an offhand comment about our little FBI agent about our particular topic of conversation, which is not something that's normally on my radar, but you're like, just watch. Now that we mention it, you're going to be getting ads. I have not gotten a single ad. And I am kind of concerned for his well-being.
He's dead.
Right? I'm like, I hope he's okay. But yeah, so in 2013, a couple years later, that's when the whole Edward Snowden leak happened. And now you just can't convince me that there isn't someone in my blow dryer just listening to me at any given time. I feel like any piece of technology is just...
I don't know if I would call it blow dryer.
Okay, you know what? I'm glad it's not just me who's having difficulty. I'm having a little bit more...
A blow dryer technology. Oh, yeah.
But so those are some of the more like notable things that have happened more politically or worldly that have greater impacts. There's also some like weird, silly ones. There was a whole school lunch horse meat scandal. Back in the early 90s, there was an episode, and again, there was a clip of the lunch lady. Not again, this is just what happened. The lunch lady had a giant vat, and it was labeled assorted horse parts as she's like preparing the lunches for the kids. And there was a little subline. It's like, now with more testicles. And so it was just kind of in that moment an offhanded thing, like that's kind of fucking weird. But a decade later, there seems to be like a common
10-year.
thing, a 10-year span of when something shows up on The Simpsons versus when it happens in real life. But the Food Safety Authority of Ireland totally found horse DNA in more than a third of their burger meat.
That's disgusting.
Because they do like random samples from stores just to check the validity of the meat quality. That's probably a better word. But yeah, and just to see if there's anything erroneous in there. And a good portion of their food was horse meat.
That's trash.
That is so gross. Another weird one, the Olympics. There have been a couple of like sports predictions that have come about, but this one I just thought was kind of weird. So in 2010, Marge and Homer, for whatever reason, are competing in the Olympics, which are take place in Vancouver, which I don't think you've ever been to Canada, have you?
I'd love to go.
It's cool. Vancouver is awesome. I haven't been there since I was 17 when tragically my little world crumbled at that point, but it's gorgeous. You should go there one time. But yeah, so they're in the Olympics. It's held in Vancouver, and they are competing in curling. And so
it's the gayest shit ever.
We were talking about this at work. Oh
They're
my
just,
God.
like aggressively sweeping.
You are aggressively sweeping ice, trying to move another ice
dumb.
block with a handle. I don't understand it, but if it's on, I'm going to watch it.
I will not.
Out of sheer what the fuckery. Like, I don't understand what's happening. But I was talking to one of my coworkers, and I'm like, do you know where curling came from? Is this a Canadian thing? Neither of us cared enough to look it up, but that's a lingering question. I'm sure I could solve that real quick.
You still didn't look it up. Cool.
No, still didn't look it up. But anywho, they're competing in curling. They're representing USA, and they are kind of down to the wire competing with Sweden. And in the episode, they end up defeating Sweden. USA wins curling, which is clearly not a sport that was originated here. It's not a sport at all.
Where is it originated?
I don't fucking know. I haven't Googled it. Were you not here for the last 30 seconds of this conversation?
Oh, I thought you were just playing and you actually knew.
No, I legit put zero effort into that little segue, comment, whatever.
Scotland.
The ice sweeping capital of the world, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
What?
It was introduced in 1830 in the U.S.
It was introduced in the U.S.
I'm sorry. It was established in 1830 in the U.S.
But when did it start in Scotland?
Existed in Scotland in the early 16th century. In Dunblane, Scotland.
You're probably pronouncing that wrong.
I didn't get it in time. Bless me.
So I'm even more confused because that doesn't make sense. I thought it would have been a snowy country.
Does it not snow in Scotland?
I'm sure it does. But my knowledge of Scotland is purely based on what I've read in the Outlander book series.
Okay, Mom.
Oh, anywho. So yeah, they predicted that the USA, back to curling, ends up defeating Sweden. Marge and Homer are the Olympic champions. And in real life, the U.S. men's team ended up kicking ass and taking down the Swedes in the Olympics in Vancouver. So it was like same locations.
So our Olympics, I don't know if you know this, but are they planned out in advance of where they're going to be?
Yes. So there's like the Summer Olympics and there's the Winter Olympics. So I believe it's every 2 years there's an Olympic event, whether it's summer or winter, and then it's every 4 years for each one. And so they have to plan it in advance because they have to get the infrastructure in place, or they're going to have to prep a stadium space in order to hold all of these. So Summer Olympics is like the track and field and all of those fun things. It's swimming. Oh, swimming's my jam. That's the one I enjoy the most. Anywho, they beat the Swedes. They predicted the Olympics. Okay, so this one is a bit weird, but all the way back in 1993, there was an episode, and in that episode, an unprecedented flu tore through Springfield, resulting in people demanding a cure for a virus. Does that sound familiar to you in any way, shape, or form?
Yes, it does.
When the world as we know it ended all the way back in 2020, and we were brought down again by an unprecedented virus that swept through the nation.
From Japan?
China.
Okay, theirs was Japan.
From an Asian, an Asian country. Guess what also happened in that same episode?
What?
Murder hornets.
Oh, I don't remember that.
So, as an added bonus, there was a swarm of killer bees that was taking over Springfield in the same episode.
But did murder hornets ever make an appearance?
I don't know.
I don't
because
think so.
It's not something that affected us here in California. But it was one of those things that was on the COVID apocalyptic bingo card. The COVID era, there was a lot of, like I said, bingo card items that they ended up tagging. I need to digress a little bit more.
This is the whole episode.
This episode is a mess. That's okay. So one of the things that I have done for my daughter every year since her birth, I write an end of year letter to her, just kind of recapping the things that have happened in the world, in our life, with the goal and intention of giving them to her when she's like 18.
Yeah.
So it's like, here is the last, like, almost 2 decades of your life. This is what you probably don't remember experiencing, told from my perspective. Enjoy. It's a shit show. I will go back and read these sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, she's going to think I'm the craziest person in the world. But for 2020, there was a meme that was going around, and it was from the Ant-Man movie.
Okay.
And there was this whole dialogue exchange between these two characters. It's so fucking funny. But it was essentially, I printed it out, 40 pages of this back and forth recapping all of the weird ass shit that happened in the COVID year.
I think I've seen that actually.
I just have a post-it. This pretty much sums up everything that happened this year.
Here's your book.
It is so thick. I mean, she experienced COVID, but she was a teeny tiny little lass.
It's a child. What is this language?
But she doesn't have the same perspective that we as adults do. So I was trying to sprinkle in a little color.
That's kind of cool.
But anywho, back to COVID and the Simpsons. So that there was a lot of that stuff that was in there. Like I said, I narrowed it down to just a handful of examples because there's a lot, whether big or small. I know you had a couple.
Yeah.
Were there any on your list that were?
Yeah. So again, with the fucking Apple, they did the autocorrect error.
Oh, yes.
Someone, I don't know who, was texting into the phone. They want to meet up later, and then it would autocorrect.
Like, I want to murder you, or
beat up.
Well, I was thinking
You went like
no
0 to 100.
I remembered it saying like murder Martin, which Martin's a character.
Yes, it may have. But so that was predicted in 1994. Autocorrect errors, like I want to duck you, became factual in 2007. There was a couple big ones. One was that they kind of somewhat predicted 9/11.
Oh.
So I guess there was a poster in the background of an episode in 1997, and it said, "Come travel to New York," and it highlighted the Twin Towers, and then it said, "The rooms are $9." So it had 9 plus the 2 Twin Towers, which would equal 9/11. So people think that kind of poked at it. And then the last big one is the God particle.
Yes. So Higgs boson particle. It's a subatomic particle that gives mass to other particles. Yes, it is the God particle.
So they were mimicking in 1998 Good Will Hunting, the movie with Matt Damon,
when he
was writing all the shit on the chalkboard or whatever.
Yes.
So Homer is doing it, and then in 2001, scientists looked back and they said, yeah, that's actually how the universe was created. That is a correct equation, which had not been invented yet.
Right. Or it hadn't been agreed upon in the
whatever.
scientific community. Yeah, no, that was a big one too.
And then I see your note of the last one, which is also what I have. So I'll let you talk about that one.
The Futurama is really just
from the future.
A fast forward look at what
so
we
does
have
that mean we're going to have bitches with one eyes and Zoidbergs and
probably? I mean,
robots.
Zoidbergs can be explained just through deformities with, tampering of the water. We already have three-eyed fish.
So the three-eyed fish was in there.
So it's really not that big of a leap to think that we'll have weird crustacean doctors in the future. I fucking love that show. I love it so much. Or that machines run off of alcohol because Bender is a robot and he is primarily fueled by beer, which is alcohol. But yes, the fact that Futurama exists, it almost feels like he's kind of toying with us because there are other things that happen in that show as well that kind of allude to future events that haven't happened yet. So there's kind of like some crossover and repeat. So like smartwatches, there's a lot of telecommunications on stuff like that. But again, it's the same creator over two different shows. Yeah. So the fact that there's kind of bleed over is to be expected. But when I view Futurama, I almost get more of an Idiocracy vibe on it, which I watched recently. But so Futurama gives me the same vibe. I think I'm 95% certain it came out before Idiocracy did. So whether it's actually predicting the future or just poking fun of what could be and actually is happening, I don't know.
Has he ever done any interviews?
He has. Sorry.
God. Okay, tell me about him.
Okay, because clearly it's become a thing where it's on the show and then someone is rewatching it 10, 15, 20 years later. They're like, what the fuck? That's like our actual reality. So people start putting that shit together. It's not just us. And it became this like cult thing that like, you've been right a lot of times. And the analysis statistically, what the percentage of accurate predictions of the course of the episodes is, I'm sure it's a relatively low number in the grand scheme of things. Whatever. It seems like a lot.
Yes.
But anywho, other people notice. And so there have been interviews where they've been like, hey, are you a time traveler? How do you know all this shit? And he'll be like, well, I don't think I'm a time traveler, but I'm not going to rule it out. And then he'll go on to speak about how he thinks time travel is definitely something that is absolutely possible and is gonna be the future. It's just a matter of time before people figure out how to manipulate time and space. There's a lot of conviction coming from someone who's like, well, maybe because you're a fucking time traveler. But and the other side to that coin is history is a circle and it repeats itself. We are currently reliving the 90s. I don't know if you've noticed that.
And it's dumb.
So it's, you know what, we're kind of pulling from different decades, but yeah, the fashion is the 90s for sure.
And I hate it.
And early 2000s. But like economically with like the rising interest rates, I don't want to bore anyone, but it's like 70s, hello. But I digress. So it could just be that they're kind of using past things that have happened historically, kind of amping them up, twisting them a bit for entertainment value, but in doing so it's like, oh, maybe this is a possibility of our reality and that's what happens. At the end of the day, I'm kind of midline on this one. So if I had to give it a rating on the cracked scale, I would say it is perfectly plausible, but definitely deniable.
I think I would agree with that. I bet you in the future we'll find out that he is, because then it'll be the future but current. So then he'll be up. So then he'll be able to say like, yeah, is me.
You know, and there is new Futurama coming out. So let's keep an eye out for the next year or two and see what the next decade is going to be like. And do we need to place a bet? Because you are betting that he's going to come out being a time traveler.
Yeah, I bet at some point in the future.
Let's do an over-under, like in the next 10 years.
I will say 10 years, yes.
Okay.
10 years or less.
10 years or less.
He will admit to being a time traveler.
Okay. I am in the same camp. I think that there is the potential that he's going to be a time traveler, but I think it's going to be a little bit later in life. So let's wager a healthy $5 and we'll check in 2033, if not sooner. And
there you go. June 13th of 2023.
Yeah, we are going to start winding down this episode. This was a disaster.
Yeah. I had much higher hopes for this episode.
You know what?
But it devolved quite quickly.
I blame it on the fact that I have eaten very little and I went to the gym and I immediately started drinking when I walked through your door. I am still only halfway through my drink.
You know what? I think that's our issue. I'm only also halfway.
But I also feel like a scatterbrained Jane today. I don't know what happened. We were all over the place. So if you're going to leave us feedback on this episode, please leave it. But feel free to do so. We have an email address. You can reach us at crackedsistersconspiracies@gmail.com. We have an Instagram, which is probably going to be your best bet for getting in touch with us. Again, same handle, Cracked Sisters Conspiracies. We have Facebook and Twitter. Who utilizes those? We still have them. And then we also have a Patreon, which we are kind of ramping up, and we are encouraging visitors and contributors. It costs at a minimum $1 a month.
Yeah, that's $12 a year.
Right?
I'm sure you can convince yourself to skip Starbucks 2 times in a year and it will have paid for itself.
So next week
we have a surprise episode.
We are going to kind of go off the rails even more so than we normally do. We're going to step away from our normal formatting.
And then we'll want to hear your guys' feedback about what we do and tell us if you want more of that, if you never want that again, which is why we need you guys to contribute so that way we know what you like.
We're going to be putting out some polls for future episodes so you can kind of vote on what content you want to hear. But anywho, until then, stay cracked, y'all.
And have a good day.